They could also provide for the CCP to shut them down to delay aid to Taiwan. They're also potentially being used as spying tools. In 2021, FBI agents found intelligence gathering equipment on a cargo ship delivering ZPMC cranes to the Baltimore port. Now, I want to thank the port employees we talked with here today for their vigilance, their understanding of the threat, the steps they've taken to mitigate that threat in an effort to do their job well. But I think we need to do a better job working with our colleagues at the local and state level to get an understanding of what the CCP is trying to do. 2/3 of the world's top 50 container ports are owned by Chinese entities or supported by Chinese investments. And the CCP has a foothold in at least 100 ports across more than 60 countries, including in Latin America. They're offering integrated logistics data platforms called LogInc for free that would give them access, insight, and control over global transportation flows. So if you go back to 2013, I think there was a moment that captured our current situation well. Former President Obama gave what was a signature speech at the time about investing in American infrastructure. And he had American flags proudly displayed in the background. But the flags weren't there by accident, and those weren't American cranes. His advance team had gone up to the cranes and covered up the ZPMC logo beneath American flags. But what they didn't count on was a day like today where there's a lot of wind. The numerous TV cameras caught the American flag placards blowing off, revealing the ZPMC logo underneath. And I think there's a metaphor there. Just like the former president, for too long we have welcomed national security threats with open arms and pasted American flags over them, only to see them blown off by the winds of global realignment and CCP aggression. In recent years, Congress has taken critical action to counter threats from CCP proxies like Huawei and ZTE. I think it's time that we act with a similar sense of urgency to secure our critical port infrastructure. ZPMC is the Huawei of port infrastructure, waiting to disrupt our economy or our national security in the event of a crisis. And that's why I'm so grateful for the leadership of my colleague, Representative Giménez, who has been calling out this danger long before most people even knew about it, who is our point person on the committee when it comes to the Chinese Communist Party's influence in Latin America, in our own neighborhood. And I'm also grateful for my ranking member, Raja Krishnamurthy, who couldn't be here today, but has a bill that addresses the Chinese Communist Party's global influence in ports around the world. So with that, I want to turn it over to a true expert on the issue, a firefighter, a true son of Miami, and our host today, Congressman Carlos Giménez. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and certainly it's a pleasure for me to host you here, and I'm certainly grateful to the staff from the Port of Miami, Mayor Daniel Levine Cava, also for hosting us here today. Look, the issue of the cranes actually came to my attention when I was the mayor of Miami-Dade County, and the port director came, hey, they had some issues in another port. Software that's being utilized or was being utilized at that port was of Chinese origin, and it could be hacked into or actually could be transporting information back to the Communist Chinese Party. And so that's why I became very interested in the issue of cranes and found out that 70% of the cranes that are unloading, that are being used in our nation today, actually are being produced in China and being controlled by the Communist Party of China, which means that we are vulnerable to that. So I've introduced legislation to outlaw all Chinese-made software that controls the cranes, and also eventually to start, as we start to buy new cranes, that we actually start moving away from the Chinese Communist Party made cranes and start utilizing either cranes made in the United States or by our allied countries. Look, it's not just the United States. The Chinese crane manufacturers actually dominate the entire world market. 70% of all the cranes around the world are actually made in China. I believe that to be a very, very dangerous situation. And their goal is to eventually make 100% of all the cranes made in the world and be the only supplier in the world. Again, that's an extremely dangerous situation. We need to diversify. It may cost us a little more, but I'll tell you what, that extra cost is well worth the effort. So I'm very happy to be here again with my chairman. After this, we'll be going to Southcom, and they'll give us a briefing on what the situation is in Latin America. Again, we've been, sounding the alarm bells. We've been way too dormant. We have not paid significant attention to our own neighbors down in Central and South America and the Caribbean. 50 miles away over there in the Bahamas, the Chinese Communist Party are making a huge, move to establish a stronghold just 50 miles away that way. And we need to wake up. We are waking up. We need to take steps to make sure that we protect American interests, not only around the world, but specifically and especially in our hemisphere. We need to look to our hemisphere and regain, dominance in our. And I'm not talking dominance. I'm saying we need to regain our sphere of influence in our own hemisphere. And so, with that, I'm going to say a couple words in Spanish. There's somebody here in Spanish. Le quiero agradecer al presidente del comité de China, el representante Mike Gallagher, que está aquí hoy. Ha sido un honor que está con nosotros. Estamos viendo la amenaza que tiene el Partido Comunista de China, especialmente en la construcción de estas grúas que casi todas están hechas en China. 70% de todas las grúas que se utilizan aquí en los Estados Unidos están hechas en China, y también 70% de todas las grúas del mundo están hechas en China. Y es muy importante que nosotros empezamos a comprar estas grúas de diferentes lugares, de diferentes naciones que son amigos de nosotros, no naciones que son nuestros enemigos, para decirlo en algo claro. Así que otra vez, después vamos a ir a Southcom para ver lo que está haciendo el Partido Comunista de China en nuestro hemisferio, en el Caribe, a 50 millas, en las Bahamas. El Partido Comunista de China está estableciendo un tipo de base, de influencia, ahí a 50 millas de nosotros. Así que es muy importante y estoy muy agradecido que está el presidente aquí. Y también yo creo que ese comité de los temas del Partido Comunista de China que estamos investigando en el Congreso es un tema sumamente importante para la seguridad de nosotros en los Estados Unidos. Muchas gracias. Thank you very much. And I guess, Mr. Chairman, we'll take
some questions if there are any.
Yeah, I would like to ask, because I understand what you're saying, but we all remember you was a mayor 2018. You traveled to China trying to seek options, cheaper options in vehicles for our county. So it was the same communist Chinese party then. This was just 5 years ago.
Right.
What has changed since then?
I'm very glad that I took that trip. Because as soon as I took that trip and I came back to the United States, I said I want nothing to do with the Chinese Communist Party. As a matter of fact, when I came back and I saw that there was there was Chinese writing that said it was made in China, I said, I want you to paint over that. And so I came back with my eyes wide open about what the Communist Chinese Party was doing in China. And so as you noticed, we changed our RFPs to prohibit Chinese-made transportation equipment being purchased by Miami-Dade County. So I'm very glad I took that trip and saw it with my own two eyes. And so now I see what this is all about, saw what it was all about, and that's why, again, I'm glad I took that trip.
Gracias, ¿me puede contestar en español?
Sí, estoy muy agradecido que sí, fui a China, entonces lo pude ver con mis propios ojos, lo que estaba sucediendo en China. Por eso es cuando regresé, cambiamos el RFP para decir que no podíamos tener ningún tipo de equipo que estaba hecho en China para el transporte del condado de Miami-Dade. Y también cuando regresé, sabía que había letras de China aquí diciendo que estas grúas están hechas en China. Yo le di las órdenes para que pintaran sobre esas letras. Así que ese viaje me abrió los ojos de verdad lo que estaba sucediendo en China y por qué ahora, y no solo ahora, pero ahí me convertí en alguien que sí, esto es una amenaza muy grande para los Estados Unidos y para el resto del mundo, y por eso he tomado las posiciones que he tomado.
Okay,
Would you like to share your thoughts about Donald Trump's indictment?
Yeah.
I'll be happy to. I think that, look, if the indictment is based on what we're hearing, I think it's a purely political act. And it's something that's very dangerous for the United States, that a local DA could actually indict a former president, and that opens the door to Pandora's box. It's opening a can of worms that I don't think this nation needs to go down. Look, the only nations that I know of that do these kind of things, if it's based on what we know, all right, or what we think we know, you know, are really third world countries, and I don't think the United States needs to go down that path.
What's that information are you working on? I don't
Working the information that somehow this was some kind of a non-disclosure agreement that was issued back in 2016. No federal prosecutor, no federal agencies have pursued criminal charges against this, and now you have a local, you know, Manhattan DA that's doing that. I think that's pretty dangerous precedent. Sí, estoy muy preocupado que tienen cargos contra el presidente de los Estados Unidos, un fiscal que no es federal. Estos son cargos que parece que están basados en algo que pasó en el 2016. Hay muchas agencias federales que han visto este tipo vieron este caso y decidieron no traer ningún tipo de cargo. Así que para mí es muy preocupante que un fiscal local pueda hacer esto en contra de un presidente, un expresidente. Eso abre una puerta que para mí es demasiado peligrosa para los Estados Unidos.
Ahora, ¿usted cree que esto va a ayudar a la candidatura del Partido Republicano o lo va a afectar?
Yo creo que en corto plazo yo creo que va a ayudar la candidatura del presidente Trump para la nominación del Partido Republicano, porque toda la gente que yo sé están bastante están molestos de lo que ha sucedido, si es lo que nosotros creemos que es. Así que yo creo que sí, le está ayudando al expresidente Trump. Si es a largo plazo lo va a ayudar, no sé, pero al corto plazo sí, yo creo que sí lo va a ayudar.
Questions?
One more question?
Good question. Can I make one more comment about Carlos real quick? You know, our committee's been up and running for about 3 months now. It's a brand new committee. We're creating something out of nothing. We have a great group of members on both sides of the aisle, but nobody talks with more passion about the issue of our competition with the Chinese Communist Party and the stakes of this competition than Carlos Giménez, in large part because of your life experience and having seen the horrors of communism, having seen the horrors of a totalitarian party state that has no respect for human rights, for basic freedoms. Having his voice in Congress, having his voice when it comes to what I believe to be a global and existential struggle with the Chinese Communist Party is absolutely essential. It's been remarkable to see, and this region of Florida, Miami, is very well served by having Carlos Giménez in Congress.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate it.
Questions?
Thank you.
Yep, thank you. Appreciate it. All right. Thank you, sir.